In this video, I'm going to prototype a new game in Godot, showing you the process of designing and implementing it. I'm setting myself a challenge to use no inputs other than mouse movement, partially because of the benefits of creative limitations, but also because at the start of the project I was having RSI problems. I want you to directly control the player character, and I don't want to use some sort of virtual joystick, so I'm going to map the player movement one-to-one with mouse movement. The problem is that moving through a larger game world would require constant mouse recentering, so the play space needs to be restricted to a limited area. I want the game to feature exploration, so I need to find some way of expanding the game world beyond a single room. A classic Zelda-style room transition wouldn't work, as you'd leave in one direction and end up on the opposite side of the screen in the next room. This means you'd still need to recenter your mouse. What I'm thinking of doing instead is extending the world through height. There'd be certain points where you can change floor. Now I have a basic idea for the game, it's time to start developing. I'm using Godot, which I'm trying out as an alternative to Unity. I'm pretty new to Godot, my only experience is making one small game a long time ago in version 2. It's on version 3 now and 4 is in beta. It's been a while since I've done much game making or programming in general, so if you think I'm doing something wrong, you're probably right. First thing is to get the player following the mouse. I'm using raycasting to position the player at the mouse cursor. After I finished fighting the Godot raycasting API, the movement is working. It's pretty empty right now, so let's add an obstacle you have to move around. There needs to be some kind of consequence for running into it though, so we need to think about a health system. The game could just be insta-death, which would be simpler to program, but I want the game to be more forgiving. I don't want you to die and have to replay the entire level up to that point just because you made one mistake. Checkpoints would solve this, but they require some sort of save system, so just giving the player health is easier. Instead of a standard health bar, I'm going for Zelda-style hearts. Each hit from an enemy will take away one heart, so there's no ambiguity of how many hits you can take before death at any point. Health bars can be ambiguous. After you've been hit, there's a certain amount of time before you can be hit again. I just made the player flash on and off quickly to show this. Now that those basics are done, it's time to improve the player movement. I ditched all the raycasting code because I realized the player doesn't need to follow the mouse cursor one-to-one, the movement can just be relative. I enabled the locked cursor option, which keeps the cursor in the middle of the screen so you don't stop moving when it hits the edge. I decided I want a real 3D world instead of 2D floors that you transition between. To change floors, you'll move up and down stairs rather than just teleporting, which means the player controller has to be able to move up and down slopes. This seems to present some problems for Godot's move and slide function, which makes the player slowly slide down the slope if you stop moving. This might sound like the intended behavior, however there is a parameter called stop and slope which I've set to true. I fixed this by just not applying gravity when in contact with the floor. Now that the movement's working, I'm going to add some proper enemies. One obvious problem of adding enemies in this game is how you'll defeat them if you don't have an attack button. With a normal ranged enemy in a Zelda-like game, the way an engagement goes is the player closes the distance while dodging their projectiles, then attacks. It could be similar in this game, except the attack happens automatically when you touch the enemy and instantly kills them. I want to make a proper test level, and I'm going to use Godot's built-in CSG system. This allows me to make it within Godot rather than having to import something from an external editor. I'm a fan of CSG for level design because you can easily make complex shapes by combining simple primitives. Working subtractively is useful for stuff like doors and windows because you can move them around easily after you've made them. When the player moves up the level, the camera needs to follow them. We run into a problem though when the camera moves above the next floor, which blocks our view of the player. We need to hide floors and any other objects that are between the player and the camera that block the view. First, we need to find out if something is blocking the camera. We could probably use raycasting in some way, but I'm going to manually place markers that will hide anything above them when the player is below them. These will usually be positioned just below floors or anything else that blocks the view too much. Then we need to choose how to hide objects. There are 3 ways I thought of doing this. The first is toggling visibility per object, which means each object in its entirety is hidden or unhidden. The main reason this wouldn't work is that CSG objects are combined into one mesh, so you can't hide them individually. There's also a problem with tall objects. Second option is to adjust the distance of the camera near plane, which cuts off anything behind it. The problem is since the camera's at an angle, the cutoff's also at an angle, and I want it to be top down. What I ended up going with was controlling the visibility in a shader. If we use a custom shader, we can get complete control over visibility. We can just test if a pixel is above the cutoff point and hide it. One downside is every object in the game needs to use the shader. Now that the visibility system works and you can navigate a multi-floor level, I'm doing more level design and noticing some unfortunate problems with Godot's CSG system. In certain common situations, the mesh generation gets really screwed up, with some triangles missing and extra ones where they shouldn't be. This isn't just a visual problem because their collision is based on this mesh, which means that the player can get stuck on misgenerated geometry and can't progress. I've seen a few proposals for a fix on GitHub, but none of them seem to be implemented, so I just have to work around this for now, which means moving every CSG shape individually to see if its position is the cause of the problem. The last thing to do is to make the enemy actually shoot the player. I made an animation that finishes just before they attack, so you can avoid running into them just as they're about to shoot you. Now all the basic mechanics and systems are done, I can make a real level. I've made one that's about 5 minutes long, and instead of me showing it to you, how about you experience it for yourself? You can play the game for free right now, and it can run in your browser and should work on mobile too. There are aspects of the game I haven't discussed, so I'm looking forward to seeing what you think of it. Thanks for watching, and I hope you'll give the game a try.